I've seriously been questioning Jada Kiss, the rapper's whole lineage nowadays, because I do know that Styles P is of African and Jamaican lineage, but come to find out after me doing my homework, research, and due diligence, Jada Kiss is in fact a foundational Black American, but what it is he's just hella off cold because here we have it. He takes it upon himself to put out a podcast with Fat Joe, aka Fat Ho, called Joe and Jada. And if you ask me, this is a no-no. Jada Kiss went against the grain on this one. Because Jada Kiss, truth be told, he should have known. He had to know the power struggle we as foundational Black Americans were engaged in with the whole hip hop thing. Of Fat Joe trying to get out there and lie and say that Latinos were there, at the foundation of hip hop, that they helped us co create the whole hip hop thing 50-50. So we, as foundational Black Americans, we had to, get out there in front of that lying narrative and bring that whole lying narrative to a screeching halt. And in fact, we came out victorious on the other end of that power struggle we were engaged in with the whole hip hop thing. We also had to check Fat Joe, aka Fat Ho, on running around here, saying that word, N word, like it was going out of style, and saying that FBA society was broke, dusty, so on and so forth. And we as foundational Black American society, the FBA collective, we were the people that exposed, Fat Joe's whole anti-Black disposition and exposed Fat Joe for what he is, and that is a white-looking Latino tether who has done nothing for FBA society but ride high on our hog and ride off of our wave of success. He ain't got a bone of authenticity or originality in his whole body. Now what Fat Joe has done, is he knows now in all actuality that that bag is drying up. We got him fired from the BET Awards. We in FBA, by the way, in FBA society, we take credit for that. We the ones that got him fired from the BET Awards. So Joe, and knowing that, that his bag is, running out, and we bringing that FBA heat and smoke right to his doorstep, he runs to, Jada Kiss to use him as a shield to absorb this FBA smoke we've been giving him. Now while I did used to like, Jada Kiss and the Locks, growing up, I rock with some of their music to a certain degree, but Jada Kiss is out of bounds on this one, and he ain't nothing more than a sellout if you ask me, because I did used to like their music to a certain degree, but if you ask me, the Locks music, Jada Kiss included, their music never, grew to lyrical maturity. They never had no evolving substance, to where as though they was putting consciousness and Black empowerment in their rhymes. They rhymes were constantly just, bang, bang, shoot 'em up, bubblegum style rap. And if you ask me, like I said, Jada Kiss is a sellout, and what he's doing now is committing treason against the greater good of FBA society. So, and, befriending my enemy, a friend of my enemy also becomes my enemy. That's how I view it and I look at it, because this is a total no-no. You know what I mean? And if you ask me, Jada Kiss is a bought and paid for Negro in the pockets of the dominant white society. Now, hopefully, he ain't on this podcast, just sitting up, letting Fat Joe run amok up there, looking dumb in the face, saying the N word, every chance he gets, But in closing, like I said, Jada Kiss ain't nothing more than a bought and paid for Negro in the pockets of the dominant white society. And in fact, Jada Kiss is a sellout. Just my thoughts on the matter. Peace.